Thank you. Good morning. Today's presentation will be about benchmarking historical reasoning in large language models. A few words about myself. By the way, you can scan the QR code, contact me on LinkedIn. Let's have fun. In my day job, I'm a principal data scientist with Endava, which is a software service company. I'm also volunteering a lot. I'm a Google developer expert and specialized on AI and cloud AI. But today I will not talk about Gemini, ADK, A2A, or Gemma, or how to build agentic application with them. A few words about today's agenda. I will try to explain first why we need actually crowdsources benchmarks for LLM. I'll introduce a bit about Kaggle and Kaggle benchmarks, explaining about these benchmark design, drawing a few examples, analyzing the results, and if we have time, a bit of lesson learned, and have fun with the resources I prepared for you. Now, one question will be why history? It's really hard for large language models. You probably know already from the various presentations you saw in these sessions and other session in the conference that LLM doesn't just memorize hard true facts or scientific papers. Training data covers everything from Wikipedia, and we know how creative are the editorial boards in Wikipedia, blogs. Everybody has now a blog or used to have. School materials, yes, including like students' report will travel down to the data that are used to train LLM. Hopefully also my presentation today. Nationalistic or racist websites, we cannot avoid these, discussion forums, even synthetic data, and we should not forget Reddit, right? So Reddit is very much used. And on Reddit, everybody can say or be whatever he wants. The question is, what will happen if all these sources disagree or are blatantly wrong? Especially about historical stuff, is that the truth is not unique. It's often contested, and for good reason. Not every question has only one answer. And we have many examples. Some of them will be part of the benchmark. For example, the tactical versus strategical victory, right? So a small battle happened, somebody won, and then in the history books, that small battle is like a strategic change of direction, which is not real true. The image of historical characters like national heroes compared with a political actor, and historiography is really creative about that. I'll give you an example of Romania. One of the minor, I would say, reigning prince is now a world famous character. It's called Dracula. In Romania has a totally different meaning than in Hollywood. Medieval ethnicity, which is many times over-interpreted as nationality, the state continuity versus the succession of really fragmented political units. Narratives related with origins of nations, as well as modern and contemporary historical narratives. The benchmark will evaluate reasoning under ambiguity mostly, and covering such themes, not necessarily trivia, right? Why Romanian historical benchmark? Because, and I'm a Romanian, I can testify for this, Romanian history, it's a very good example for idealistic narrative as part of the process of nation building. We are extremely creative in our communist historiography, both for the Stalinist era and Ceausescu era. If I have time, I might throw some examples here, but they're really funny. Post-communist narrative are also incredibly proficient in mixing reality with imaginary, about actors. We made a revolution, about our European Union identity, and so on. And also regional disputes. Romanians are so great. We are actually very good at being wrong on this subject. Good. Now, this would be a Kaggle benchmark. But do you know what Kaggle is? Everybody knows? No? Okay, good. So, just yours then. I'll give you the short version. Kaggle is the world's largest platform for data science and machine learning. Like 30 million community of like everything from top-notch researcher to students, enthusiasts. People joke saying that, you know, finally Google, who tried hard with Google Plus or other initiatives to have a social platform, they succeed with Waze and Kaggle, right? By accident. Of course, they still are not Facebook, they dreamed of, but this never happened. So while being initially one platform for competitive predictive modeling, now Kaggle is much more. It contains data sets, code examples, a lot of notebooks, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of public data sets. Models is not huge like Hugging Face with millions of models. It has something around few tens of thousands of public models now. And it has Kaggle Learn. Most recently, they introduced Kaggle Benchmark, which allows us to create crowdsource benchmarks for testing large language models. What Kaggle Benchmark provides is a standardized, reproducible evaluation framework for AI systems. Kaggle Benchmark consists of a series of tasks, and you can add a set of models. So the benchmark itself is actually the benchmark suite is formed by the collection of benchmark tasks, but usually you can add your selection of models, and of course you can change if new models are issued and added to the platform. You can add them and adjust the benchmark. Also, the Kaggle benchmark framework provides a predefined code generation tool, so you don't have to write the code. You can task an AI agent to generate based on your subject the Python code that is then run in the platform. And of course, it contains the mechanism of for running the task against the models and the evaluation system. Now, each task contains the definition, which should be basically a prompt. It could be simple or more elaborated. The expected responses, and then you have LLM used as a judge to evaluate the responses of the various models added to the benchmark against the expected responses, which can be, again, for each task, one or multiple. There are actually two types of Kaggle benchmarks. There are the research benchmarks, which are created by major AI labs, such as Google DeepMind, Meta, IBM, and others. Most of the time, they will require extensive compute resources, which are not really available for the community. By default, the community member, I think, will have like $10 budget per day and $200 per month, something, or $50 per month. But actually, if you are active, if you are creating benchmarks, they are increasing very much the quota, right? So it's practically non-limited if you are active. On the other hand, the community benchmark are open for everyone. So basically, any one of the 30 million members of Kaggle community can produce actually these benchmarks. Those are very diverse in many domains, ranging for like checking how well are performing large language models for mathematics, logic tasks, but also really focus domains, like in our case, history, but could be chemistry or whatever. It is, the framework here is designed to be accessible and reproducible, and you basically use them to evaluate real world or specialized use cases. Now let's look to the anatomy of a general Kaggle benchmark task. You'll have the task definition, then the expected response. Here is only one. You can give a list, actually. The part where you actually run the model or the list of models against the task. And then you have the task evaluation, which can be something as simple as an assert or more elaborate validation. And here, excuse me for the Romanian, this is the original one, right? So it's not translated. It's in Romanian. I know when I'm saying Romanian, I can fake it a bit and it sounds like Armenian. It's not Armenian, it's not Romanian, it's Romanian. And this example is very funny because it is about one of the battle in the Romanian history, which was used in the 19th century as an extraordinary event, right? What really happened is that an Ottoman army was moving toward Bucharest, which was the capital at that time. They had a battle near the city. They won the battle, so this is a tactical win. And the next day, the Ottoman army occupied the capital, right? So they were not stopped, really. And then the whole country, the Romanian army, go over the border, and then they secure some help from a powerful neighbor, and they return and finally win the war. But again, so next, for like 10 years after that, the Ottoman were still here and so on. So it's the way, I mean, and maybe it's a very good example how actually historical narratives are not necessarily falsifying the history, but are adding, these glorious over-interpretation. And so here, to correctly answer to this question, the LLM should cover all these aspects. So making sure that make the differentiation between the tactical, operational, and strategical level, right? Yeah, and here is, the continuation here because we want to evaluate the score against the number of criteria. We are not just doing an assert. We basically count the number of positive answers and then we'll average. Now, this was one example. When doing this benchmark development, we wanted actually to answer to few research questions. I'll just list here. One is, can LLM distinguish scholarship from national myth? Second, are large language models robust against leading prompts? So when we modify the prompt, we can be like helping the LLM to answer correctly, or we can be very like ask a very short question without giving any hint on what we are expecting in terms of complexity of the answer. So the prompts could potentially influence very much the models, especially if the right answer is not yes, no, right? Could be very interpreted, like in the example I gave before. A third one, can the models express uncertainty? So in many of the tasks we created for this benchmark, as I said, is not only one good answer, and the complete answer will mean to present the facts, to present the various interpretation, and then being able to correctly show which one of the competing narratives are the one that is currently accepted by the larger historical community. And this is actually rated with the fourth answer. Are the model for the research questions, are the models presenting alternative narratives, evaluating them comparatively, and indicate the correct perspective? Now, there are a number of tasks, but I can group them in several categories, which are shortly mentioned here. Questions about medieval rulers, which are, these, in reality, they are most of the time just, your basic local tyrant or whatever. But they are either shown as complete villains, remember Dracula, or like a glorious army leaders, or, nation builder a person. But the fact is that most of the time they are like very complex characters. Battles, especially medieval battles, are very important because here most of them, they were used actually in building the nation building narratives, but also the image of the glorious past. Histories about national identity, and with Romanian, which are like, really a melting pot of many nations, actually, many ethnicity, we had competing narratives about origin. We are Dacians, Latins, Slavic, especially during Stalinist era. We thought about ourselves and wrote many historical books that actually were like Slavic, not Latin. Ottoman and Greek influence, which is interesting because in the same historical period, we had both these influences. Communist narratives, especially during Stalin's and Ceausescu dictatorship, were really creative during Ceausescu's era in reusing nation building narrative from the 19th century. And also in the modern history, we have many subjects like nation building, independence war, communist and fascist dictatorship, attitude toward Holocaust, World War I and World War II. Contemporary history, that means after 1989, we still have competing theories about the role of Securitate or the Communist Party, who won the revolution, who was actually leading the country toward the EU admission, and also about our current EU identity. So these are the main categories from which the tasks included in the benchmark are derived. Now, to create one task, we start with the historical topic. Could be one in those categories presented before, and then we'll design the questions based on the research questions we want actually to touch. We define the reference answer, making sure to cover all that factors that I mentioned before, like factual accuracy, the multiple interpretation present, the being able to balance between the various interpretation, as well as correctly selecting the right or the most probable correct view. And then we can and we played with different prop variants. Initially, we started with very simple and neutral, but then we added also cases when we specify, we hinted a bit the models so that will help them to touch the various perspectives. We wanted to check that they are correctly interpreted. And then we have the LLM as a judge used to interpret the large language model test answers to get the evaluation. So here are some examples of prompt variants. So like who won the Rovine battle? This is an example where we just ask a simple neutral question, and then we have the more balanced question, which is good and wrong in the same time, because while hinting the large language model that we expect to give a more balanced perspective, we are basically helping to get higher score, right? The evaluation criteria, that means what are typical expected answer that are included in the list of criteria to check for each task, are one or more of the following: checking the factual accuracy, so the most basic stuff. I mean, if we ask when was a certain battle, we expect to say the correct year or something, or who won the battle, right? But then we touch also about like explaining institutional mechanism, acknowledging the fact that over time the interpretation of a certain historical event or even historical character changed, and it is important to capture also this change of perspective. Avoiding anachronism is important. For example, models might tend to project today's point of view on like ancient history or medieval history, which is totally wrong. And you know, we have all kind of new direction in historiography where we tend to interpret like ancient history institution, judging them in the context of today's institution, which is debated and debatable as well. Resistance to nation building or nation identity myth, it's also important, and it's one of the criteria. And also we want to check that the models are avoiding extreme or oversimplified explanation of some of the historical events or historical characters. And of course, one of the criteria is to make sure that the model will include in the answer all those alternative perspectives that are present in today's historical works. A total 29 tasks were created with a total number of checks, 148 for each task. It was something between 4 and 6 evaluation criteria, and accuracy like score was calculated. Models from OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Qwen, and Google DeepMind were included. So this is a more complete list of the models. I wanted to include Gemma recent models and also the previous release of Gemma 3, because I wanted also to see how these models are behaving, both in terms of factual accuracy, knowing that they have access to maybe a reduced reduced training data compared with frontier models, but also to test how well will do the reasoning part, and especially around analyzing competing narratives, this kind of smaller size models. And so I included not the smallest GEMMA model, but also like the 26B and 31B from GEMMA 4, for example. Now, I just want to show you some case studies as examples of tasks included in this benchmark suite. One example: who won the Moldavian-Ottoman War of 4075-4076? You know what happened there? So in 4075, frontier small force, Ottoman force, invaded Moldavia as a preparation for next year campaign, which was about to conquer all peripheral of Black Sea. So next year, this is the historical fact, Ottoman Empire conquer everything, like remaining Byzantine Empire, Trapezunt in north of Black Sea, Crimea, the avant-post of Polish Commonwealth. It was a huge kingdom which covers everything like Prussia, Poland, today's Ukraine, everything. Okay, so they planned to conquer, and they did. But if you look to the Romanian narrative, it's like we won this huge battle that stopped the Ottoman Empire advance to Europe. Well, it was a tactical victory, fighting a smaller army, and then the Ottomans practically destroyed the Moldavian army next year, when it was actually the real campaign. They withdrew because the plague in a very hot summer was, rampant. But at the end, they basically changed the political landscape of the region, right? So they become the dominant power, and they were contested maybe just few centuries after that by the expansion of the Russian Empire. Good. Another type of questions is like how we should interpret, the Skalaka. This means when they founded the country, right? So they get down from the horse. The point here is to distinguish between the legends of founding the country and the real historical fact, which was maybe a succession of slowly expanding of a nearby strong royalty, like in our case it was Hungarian Empire, conquering parts of today's Moldavia. And the point is to make sure that the LLM is not simply reproducing the narrative. Like in the previous example, it was making sure that the LLM will not oversimplify the reality of a complex historical fact. Prompt framing is also an important factor. With a neutral prompt, like was the Union of 1859 the result of popular support or light diplomacy, which is, this kind of neutral prompt that it's inviting actually the model to include both perspectives when judging a complex, important fact. And that means we'll have to cover the role of, the international status at that point, where, the Crimean War was just won by the Ottoman Empire together with Western powers. So it was a regression of Russian might in the area. So an opportunity for formation of such independent countries. Then the political elites were very, very important. Some of them to make sure there are political rights in the Ottoman Empire. And so this is very, thank you. It's very interesting that leaders in the Ottoman Empire influenced transformation, political transformation, in a country that became independent then from the Ottoman Empire. And also the public support was extremely important. With the leading prompt, we can actually influence the models, and it is happening this, to not include actually all those perspectives, right? And focus on the role of the Romanian people, you know, in the two countries that got united, and then these lead to the formation of the first modern Romanian state. And so with the leading prompt, we can test the prompt sensitivity, having the models interpreting the changes because the wording changed. Now, I stop with the examples. I'm also not much time rest. Okay, so the best model, Gemini 2.5 Pro. The worst model, Gemma 3. So Google is both the best and the worst. Okay. Oops, sorry. And this is distribution over tasks. So you can see some of the models have very bad score for some of the tasks and very very bad and maximum score for other tasks. Now, if we analyze the reasons, so looking to what actually happened in each case, there are several failure reasons for some of the tasks. The most important would be a narrative reproduction. So the model, rather than getting the historical facts correctly according to the mainstream historical publication, will also take in consideration the dominant narratives which are present in popular literature, like popularization journals, or even contemporary historical publication, but which are, more politically supported than accepted by the historical community. Oversimplification, it's one of the possible trap that a model can get. Basically reducing the image of historic character to heroes or villain, or interpreting one political event in a very limited modality. We saw that models might be very sensitive to the prompt, especially to prompts that are framing or reducing or hinting to reduce interpretation of a complex event. Missing context, we get the facts correct, but the causality shows some weakness, and also it's missing, the model is missing the historical nodes. And anachronism, it's a common failure point where models tend to project modern concepts onto historical actors and events. And these include actually the projection of national building narrative on simple ethnic presence in the antiquity or medieval era. So most failures are actually reasoning failures, not failures around knowledge. Another observation, so the average score are misleading. The most frontier models score between 90 and 97%, but they have very different reasoning patterns. From the set of tasks presented, the medieval history seems to be the hardest. This is also probably because a lot of symbolic and mythological narrative were created around Middle Age events. Apparently, the rulers in medieval period were making very good villain or heroes images. Task design matters a lot, and the prompt structure proved to have a great impact. When we explicitly state the fact that a certain event or historical character are debatable, the answer will generally improve. But this is, it's in the same time right, because we are not leading by not included in the questions some nonsense, and is wrong because we help too much maybe. So having a good balance between what we hint and what we don't mention, it's important. And as I said, the knowledge is not actually the real bottleneck. The main challenge is dealing with ambiguity. Now, there are many limitations to these benchmarks. The number of tasks is very small, by the way. The scope, it's focused on Romanian history and Romanian language, but this was on purpose. The reference answers are mostly based on the current mainstream scholarship. And by the way, I checked the validity of the answer with my advisor in university that certify that actually are historically accurate and all the perspectives are correct, the one that were used to validate the task. So the data set samples represent topics rather than providing a specific coverage of the Romanian history. Of course, it's a very small selection. I would like to see such benchmark extended to cover multiple languages. We know, especially if you come from like a country or a language with a very small impact globally, the models will struggle more with interpretation. And it is not actually about understanding the language, it's about the cultural context. And yesterday, you presented actually something really relevant to this. So grasping especially for the second part of the training, to get the cultural background right, it's extremely important. Because, many will train small language model by translating Q&A from English to the local vernacular, and they miss the cultural context. So this is really important. For the evaluation, nonsense, alternative, historical reasoning are extremely important. And unfortunately, the effort needed to expand such a benchmark task is considerable, especially if the needed experts are in a very small field. Now, I can skip this. Okay, so few takeaways. Historical reasoning is not same thing as a factual recall. So LLM must distinguish facts, context, and more about competing historical interpretation. Prompting, we learned that matters a lot. And very important, Kaggle benchmarks are important because they are actually extending what regular benchmarks are doing. We are crowdsourcing the benchmarking of LLM, and at the same time we are creating material for deeper Q&A for training next generation of models. And actually Google, this is the strong reason behind creating this crowdsourcing benchmarking for Google, because they have access to all these data sets created by the community. Now, I finished my presentation. These are a few examples of Romanian historiography 20th century. this is a real painting by a real, so this is not created by AI. It's a real painting created in 1983. It's called Anniversary. The guy there is Ceausescu, and he's toasting Moldavian wine, right, from Moldova. You know, it's with Stefan the Great. Yeah, okay, because he wanted to project this image that he is the continuator of a very strong, important rulers. Here, it's a movie from 1989, and you have here Mircea, the greatest, and the Bayazid. Mircea is played by Sergiu Nicolaescu, whose role in the revolution was instrumental in creating the narrative of the people taking over and leading to the revolution, but actually it was a coup d'etat by the Securitate and Communist Party. Okay, they replaced themselves. And he's speaking with Bayezid. This never happened, and it's funny, in the movie, they speaking in the terms of a national poem, right? So this is about the communist historiography. And this is actually the link to the benchmark on the Kaggle benchmark. Thank you very much. Questions? Or I should go?
Thank you for speech. My question is about modern history. If two different, well-founded or opposing opinions exist simultaneously, how does the language model make a decision? Germany.
Just to make sure that I get it right, your question. So your question is how, when we have
language model, how does language model making decision if two opposing opinions exist simultaneously?
So what we test here, thank you, it's a very good question. So what we test here with this benchmark, putting one question, and then we have several aspects that need to be covered. The way that the benchmark is framed is that we test for each of the perspectives that the model would cover it, right? So in the example of the battle, who was won short term, but it was just a tactical win, we want to model the model to acknowledge that the first statement is correct, right? I mean, we test he answered correctly to the first one, and then that he also mentioned the second one, like, yes, it was a tactical win, but next day, operationally was a disaster because the other army conquered the capital, right? So the second perspective should be included in the model answer. And then we have the third perspective, what happened next? The model, we checked that the model also mentioned that on a longer term, like the Romanian army left the country and the other army occupied completely the country. Yeah. The third criteria, after some while, they get help from outside and reconquer the country. So the model, if answered to only the mention only the first one, will have 25%, right? If it answer all, if it cover all in the answer, we'll get 100%. So only when it's getting all, then we'll have, and then some of the criteria are specifically saying with these competing narratives, explain also which one is the correct. So he should mention, the model should mention, let's say, two competing narratives, but also to judge which one is the correct one.
Thank you so much. We're on a very philosophic topic, and my answer as we have a lot of very complicated historical facts, and sometimes the right answer depends on nationality, culture, etc. Because people create your world construction on this knowledge, and it's first question. So sometimes we don't have right answer. Also, you mentioned that resources, agent learning on, and sometimes it's open source, but truth can contain in historical archives with very private access.
Well, I'm not a large language models, but you give me a very complex question. So let's test me. Any Serbian here? Kosovo-Polian. By the way, Rovine battle is very close, right? Kosovo-Polian is the birthplace of Serbian national identity, right? Which is wrongly named like this because it's when a Serbian state was formed. It's not a national identity. There was no Serbian national state at that time. It's also the place where the last king died, because then they were conquered by the Ottoman Empire. And it's also the place where their heart is suffering today, because it's a separate state and they, have all this complex narrative after Yugoslavian war and so on. Well, the interpretation, as I said, is changing time, and is changed depending who said the story, right? And for a model to be evaluated, first of all, the correct task definition for this is to mention all these narratives and being able to acknowledge the change in time, also from Serbian perspective or from Ottoman or from whatever, Albanian storytellers, right? And being able, when crafting the answer, to mention these different perspectives, each with its value, its historical relevance, and with the value, because this is also important, the symbolic value attached by one ethnicity or another to the unique historical moment. By the way, when the Serbian ruler died in Varna battle, also the Ottoman Sultan died, so they also suffer.
Thank you very much. A very interesting talk. And my question, following the previous two, I think, the same idea that any history fact could be interpreted in at least two ways or maybe more. And if we ask our LLM on some language, like Romanian or, Russian, for example.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
I was specifically instructed to only give examples from Romanian history, Serbian design.
Yeah. It's
Let's not have an
absolutely
Armenian
okay.
Debate here. Okay.
Actually, more international example. World War II. Who won this war? Yeah. Some countries consider that they won, some other countries then they won. And if we ask LLM on some specific language.
She's the session chair. She can terminate your question anytime. So.
Okay. I'm trying to be objective.
Okay.
So does it depend on the language? My question.
Right.
The interpretation of the historical fact, will it be depend on the language of the question?
Well, it's a very good question. And one of the reasons we depend on the language, it's non-intuitively, not because if you ask the language in Romanian, they will say Transylvania is Romanian, not Hungarian, but because if you ask in Romanian, it's not the fact that will grasp that you might have a certain sensibility and will try to adapt the answer to your question so that not hurting that sensibility. It's because if you ask a question in Romanian and the language model was, let's say, trained with a Romanian data set, the fine-tuning, instruction fine-tuning part will include, hopefully, Romanian context-aware material. And for this reason, you might have maybe the answer more balanced to what is commonly acceptable by a larger historical community as well as the local historical community. And this would be the reason, not because he wants not to hurt your sensibility. Because, you know, you can be Romanian speaking Hungarian asking the Armenian Romanian. And but it's more tricky than that, because currently there is no good Romanian LLM trained from scratch with context-aware, Romanian context-aware data, the Q&A part. Like we have this LLM for Romanian, the data for instruction fine-tuning is very bad. You basically translate it from English, so you have zero local context. Now, a good LLM, without touching on, how to say, nationalistic sensitive subjects, would cover the different perspectives. I cannot answer who won World War II because I still want to get out of the country safe, right? So, okay, and maybe it's not a good idea to bring the discussion here, but I think important is to make sure when training an LLM that one, for every language we include context-aware information. So that means it's not cheap. For Romania, we failed to do it because we didn't have access to a large number of linguists, historians, and people being able to manually verify large sets of data on this. And so relying only on like English-based Q&A and stuff like that is not effective. No. And it's the same for Russian, right? I guess. You need larger access to larger material and, if possible, not biased by recent rewriting of history.